Action movies are built on illusion, precisely timed detonations, carefully choreographed firefights, and performers who make danger look effortless. For decades, Hollywood has convinced audiences that what they see is deadly, when in truth it's often a meticulously engineered performance, wrapped in smoke and spectacle. But beneath that polished surface lies another tradition, one far more unsettling. The moments when filmmakers abandoned the illusion entirely and reached for danger that was very real. Some directors believed authenticity couldn't be faked. They wanted the weight of true explosions, the raw violence of real ammunition, and the visceral unpredictability of physical danger that no visual effect could replicate. And in pursuit of that vision, they drove their sets perilously close to collapse. Safety protocols buckled, equipment malfunctioned, and actors, many unaware of just how thin the line was, found themselves standing in the path of risks no one fully controlled. These productions weren't merely ambitious. They were reckless. Bullets were sometimes more than blanks. Explosions erupted with a violence their crews hadn't calculated. Vehicles malfunctioned, props turned lethal, and performers reacted not with rehearsed fear, but with instinctive survival responses. The tension etched into their faces wasn't always acting. It was dread. Some of these choices resulted in close calls. Others carried consequences that changed Hollywood forever. And through it all, the industry quietly tried to bury the detailed stories of chaos that contradicted the myth of the controlled, polished machine behind every blockbuster. Tonight, we lift that curtain. We revisit the films where realism was taken to extremes, where the pursuit of spectacle led to genuine peril, and where the danger on screen wasn't staged, but frighteningly authentic. These are 15 Hollywood action movies that relied on real ammunition, real explosives, and real danger, and the stories that survived from sets that nearly didn't. Fact 1. The Expendables 3. What unfolded on the set of The Expendables 3 remains one of the most startling near disasters in modern action filmmaking. Jason Statham, a performer known for his willingness to tackle physically demanding stunts, stepped behind the wheel of a massive military-grade truck for a scene meant to end just short of the water's edge. Every department believed the stunt had been calculated to precision marks, where set timing rehearsed and escape routes mapped. Then, during the real take, the impossible happened. The brakes failed. The vehicle surged forward with a weight and momentum no one could stop. Crew members shouted warnings, but the truck tore past its intended stopping point and thundered off the dock before anyone could intervene. Witnesses later described watching helplessly as Statham vanished inside the sinking vehicle, locked in a battle not against a scripted enemy, but against physics and time. Underwater, the truck filled rapidly. Statham, drawing on athletic instincts from his years as a professional diver, forced his way free and swam to the surface moments before the vehicle settled on the ocean floor. The production scrambled, shaken and stunned by how quickly a controlled stunt had turned into a genuine emergency. The moment was downplayed publicly, and the final edit used a modified version of the sequence. But for those present, the lesson was unforgettable. When realism overrides safety, the difference between a stunt and a disaster can be a single mechanical failure. And Expendables 3 was only the beginning. Fact 2. Rambo 3. The third installment of the Rambo franchise embraced spectacle with unrestrained intensity. But behind the scenes, the production's fixation on authenticity flirted with dangers few were willing to acknowledge at the debut. Filming in unforgiving desert terrain surrounded by heat dust and unpredictable wind, the crew faced an environment that already posed challenges. Then came the decision that pushed everything further, incorporating real ammunition in certain wide-range gunfire sequences. The rationale was simple, but risky. Director and crew believed genuine firepower would create stronger visual impact. This choice, combined with manually triggered explosions, generated an atmosphere that felt alarmingly close to genuine combat. Actors charged across open ground as detonations erupted around them. Dust clouds clouded vision. Misjudged cues sent debris hurtling off trajectory. During a large-scale helicopter assault sequence, shockwaves from the blasts shook the ground so violently that several performers lost their footing. One stuntman later recalled being thrown sideways by a blast that landed too close, describing the moment as not performance, just survival. Even Stallone acknowledged the overwhelming force of the artillery simulations, noting privately that some effects felt far beyond theatrical intention. Ironically, many of the most dangerous moments didn't appear in the final film. Editing trimmed them down or removed them entirely, leaving audiences unaware of just how reckless the shoot had been. And yet, another film released decades earlier had gone even further, pushing violence and authenticity to unprecedented extremes. Fact 3. The Wild Bunch. Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch revolutionized cinematic violence, but the realism audiences praised came at a cost the production rarely discussed. Peckinpah's obsession with authenticity led him to make a controversial decision: approve the use of live ammunition for certain long-distance shots to achieve impact that blanks simply couldn't produce. The climactic showdown, now regarded as one of cinema's most chaotic gunfights, was constructed from a labyrinth of pyrotechnic rigs and squibs wired across buildings, props, and costumes. Dust storms swept through the set, unpredictably distorting timing and scattering debris. Extras moved through billowing smoke, unsure whether the blasts erupting around them were functioning as intended or misfiring dangerously. In one terrifying moment, a live round struck a metal object off camera, sending fragments ricocheting near the operators. A camera crew member dove for cover, shaken enough to consider walking away from the production entirely. Peckinpah brushed off the incident, insisting that the performance needed the raw, unfiltered brutality the chaos created. Actors later admitted that much of the shock and exhaustion visible in their performances came not from acting choices, but from navigating a set that felt more like a battlefield than a controlled production environment. The film emerged as a celebrated masterpiece, but beneath its artistic legacy lies a truth many overlook. The Wild Bunch wasn't merely portraying violence at times, it was wrestling with the real thing. Fact 4. Full Metal Jacket. Kubrick's reputation for absolute control is legendary, but on the set of Full Metal Jacket, one sequence slipped into a realm he couldn't fully command. The abandoned industrial complex chosen as the stand-in for war-torn Hugh was a raw, echo-laden maze where every sound amplified into a thunderclap. When the pyrotechnics crew proposed using stronger, sharper detonators to mimic incoming rounds, Kubrick agreed, and then encouraged them to go further. The effects were far more intense than expected. Explosions hidden behind broken concrete and scattered debris sent shockwaves through the narrow passages, shaking dust loose from the ceilings. During the tense sniper sequence, one mistimed blast hurled fragments across the floor, grazing a camera operator and stopping the shoot temporarily. Though production staff urged caution, Kubrick refused to lessen the impact, believing the heightened danger would inject a sense of immediacy into the performances. Smoke-thickened dust stirred with every blast, and the actors endured repeated takes inside a haze that made breathing difficult and visibility poor. Many later remembered the sensation of each detonation reverberating through their chests, a physical jolt that made acting almost secondary to simply bracing for the next explosion. The realism audiences praised came not only from Kubrick's vision, but from the very real tension simmering on, set an atmosphere that pushed performers into survival mode. And still another film would take the chaos of combat to a level even more overwhelming. Fact 5. Black Hawk Down. Ridley Scott built Black Hawk Down on a foundation of relentless authenticity, transforming entire sections of Morocco into a sprawling war zone. Real helicopters thundered overhead, armored vehicles tore through the narrow streets, and pyrotechnics erupted with forceful unpredictability. It wasn't just a film set, it was a sensory assault. The danger became apparent early. During a helicopter sweep over the market square, smoke from ground explosions collided with rotor wash, swallowing the performance. performers in a blinding swirl. A stuntman sprinting through the haze collided with a scaffold hidden by the smoke, suffering fractured ribs. Crew members later admitted that they couldn't tell where the choreography ended and genuine confusion began. Gunfire sequences shot with full power blanks echoed violently against stone walls. Even with ear protection, several crew members experienced ringing and temporary hearing issues. Meanwhile, pyrotechnic charges detonated so close to moving Humvees that debris clattered off their armor, startling actors mid-scene. Scott insisted this level of intensity was essential to capturing the chaos of urban warfare. The result was visually stunning and viscerally real. But the production crew privately acknowledged that they had stepped into an environment where one mistimed blast or a single misstep could have shifted the entire tone of the shoot from controlled chaos to catastrophe. And yet, the next film would prove that danger didn't always come from sprawling outdoor sets. Sometimes it lurked inside the very walls of a skyscraper. Fact 6. Die Hard. Filmed inside the operational Fox Plaza Tower, Die Hard turned an ordinary office building into a battleground, and in doing so, introduced hazards no one fully anticipated. The production chose to rely heavily on practical explosions within enclosed spaces, amplifying the force of every blast and turning narrow hallways into echo chambers where shockwaves struck harder than expected. Bruce Willis encountered the consequences firsthand. During a corridor firefight, a rifle loaded with blanks discharged dangerously close to his ear. The resulting acoustic concussion ruptured part of his eardrum, leaving him with permanent hearing loss. The cast quickly realized that filming indoors magnified every muzzle flash and blast far beyond safe comfort. Then came the glass scene. Determined to make the shots believable, the crew mixed sugar glass with sections of real laminated glass to catch the light authentically. Performing take after take barefoot, Willis endured real cuts pain that translated directly into the grimaces and winces seen on screen. The rooftop explosion created its own shockwave. When the blast designed to simulate the helicopter's destruction ignited, the force rippled down the building, shattering windows several floors below, and alarming workers who had no idea a controlled effect had just gone off overhead. The intensity gave Die Hard its legendary grit, but behind the camera, the production frequently walked a tightrope where spectacle edged dangerously close to real harm. Fact 7. The Crow. The tragedy that unfolded during the making of The Crow remains one of Hollywood's most sobering reminders of how quickly a controlled environment can turn catastrophic. Brandon Lee stepped into a routine scene one he had rehearsed several times, with no reason to expect the danger waiting for him. He was meant to walk through a doorway, confront armed attackers, and collapse in a choreographed fall. But an error buried deep in the weapon's preparation had already set disaster in motion. Earlier in production, the same revolver had been loaded with dummy cartridges for close-up shots. A fragment from one of those dummies lodged unseen inside the barrel. Later, when the gun was reloaded with blanks cartridges capable of propelling anything trapped in the barrel at lethal speed, the weapon became unknowingly deadly. No one realized the oversight until the moment the trigger was pulled. Lee collapsed instantly. At first, the crew believed he had simply executed the scene with unusual finesse. But when he didn't rise, confusion shifted into alarm. The wound was real, the accident irreversible. The incident sent shockwaves through the industry, exposing flaws in safety procedures that had gone unexamined for far too long. The scene was removed. The production finished under a cloud of grief, and Hollywood was forced to confront the fragility of its own safeguards. But The Crow was not the only film shaped by uncontrollable danger. Another production embraced risk as part of its aesthetic and let that danger bleed into every frame. Fact 8. The Hurt Locker. Before The Hurt Locker became a celebrated exploration of modern warfare's intensity, it existed as a brutally demanding production filmed in the searing heat of Jordan. Director Catherine Bigelow rejected digital enhancements, insisting on physical detonations that would deliver the weight and violence of real bomb blasts. She wanted the audience to feel the shock just as the characters did. And her cast felt that shock in ways they never expected. Jeremy Renner, outfitted in a cumbersome bomb suit, approached a rigged vehicle during a pivotal shot. When the explosion erupted, its force spread farther than calculations predicted. The shockwave slammed into Renner, knocking him off balance and leaving him disoriented. His reaction, captured perfectly on film, wasn't a performance, it was instinct. Another close call occurred during the tense desert shootout. A misfire sent debris flying in unpredictable arcs, forcing crew members to scatter. A metal shard streaked past a focus puller by mere inches. The production halted only briefly before Bigelow pushed onward, determined not to lose the momentum of the moment. Adding an eerie layer to the danger was the location itself. Positioned close to the Iraqi border, the cast frequently heard genuine gunfire echoing from miles away. It was a reminder that the tension around them wasn't entirely fabricated. What resulted was a film whose authenticity was forged in real strain, real impact, and real unpredictability. But another production would take the pursuit of realism even further onto a beach designed to recreate one of history's bloodiest days. Fact 9. Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg set out to make the opening of Saving Private Ryan feel as visceral and disorienting as the real Omaha Beach landing, and the methods he used brought the cast into contact with genuine danger. The beach was rigged with layers of practical pyrotechnics charges buried beneath the sand debris cannons aimed toward the surf and water jets engineered to simulate bullets hitting the waves. When cameras rolled, the shoreline erupted into chaos. Buried explosives detonated inches from the actors' feet, showering them with sand and sending shockwaves pulsing through their legs. Several performers lost their balance, not because it was scripted, but because the concussive power exceeded expectations. One stuntman was hurled backward when a charge detonated too early. The water jets added another unpredictable element. Fired at immense pressure, they knocked extras off their feet and dragged some into the surf. A crew member later admitted that a few takes came uncomfortably close to crossing safety lines, but Spielberg refused to dilute the intensity, insisting that immersion demanded authenticity. The resulting sequence became a landmark of war cinema, praised for its brutal realism. But that realism was shaped by moments in which the danger wasn't staged, it simply couldn't be controlled. And the next production on this list would take danger to the sky, forcing a helicopter to thread the needle through a concrete canyon. Fact 10. Terminator 2: Judgment Day. James Cameron has always carried a reputation for pushing filmmaking beyond its comfort zone. But Terminator 2 demanded a level of audacity that even seasoned crew members found hard to reconcile. The film's iconic helicopter chase, still regarded as one of the most daring sequences in action movie history, was executed with a real police helicopter flying at frighteningly low altitude. Chuck Tamborough, the pilot recruited for the stunt, initially resisted Cameron's request to descend even lower, weaving through an industrial corridor with almost no room for error. Cameron, however, insisted on authenticity, urging Tamborough to commit to a maneuver that would make the audience believe the machine was inches away from catastrophe. During the take, the helicopter ducked beneath an overpass, its rotors clearing the concrete structure by what seemed like mere breaths. Massive pyrotechnic charges detonated along the pathway, their heat and concussive force battering the aircraft from below. Crew members watching from a distance instinctively crouched, convinced that the stunt had crossed into disaster territory. One gust of wind, one mistimed tilt, or one mechanical glitch could have turned the shot into tragedy. Yet, Tamborough maintained control, delivering a sequence that remains unrivaled in its raw, unfiltered danger. Cameron would later admit that attempting such a stunt today would be virtually impossible under modern safety regulations. But even that brush with peril did little to prepare Hollywood for a different form of chaos, one unleashed in the heart of a living, breathing city. Fact 11. Heat. Michael Mann's Heat has long been praised for its brutally realistic downtown shootout, but behind the camera, the production teetered far closer to genuine danger than many realize. man required his actors to train with tactical experts, mastering reload techniques and formation movements. But what made the sequence truly hazardous were the weapon's full-power blanks that produced explosive muzzle flashes and concussive bursts capable of rattling the buildings around them. The streets of Los Angeles echoed with thunderous gunfire as the cast unleashed volley after volley. The effect was so convincing that residents in nearby apartments called emergency services, believing an actual gun battle had erupted. Yet, the noise wasn't the only threat. Sparks from the blanks ignited debris, and at one point, a small fire ignited under a prop car rigged for explosion, forcing the stunt team to intervene before it spread. Val Kilmer's flawless reload sequence, often cited as one of the most accurate depictions in film history, was performed under conditions where the heat, sound, and unpredictability of each burst were not merely theatrical. They were genuinely overwhelming. Crew members recalled moments where the shock waves bounced off the buildings, creating an acoustic tunnel that amplified every shot to alarming levels. Despite these risks, Mann refused to stage the scene indoors or rely on sound design. He fought for visceral authenticity, and in doing so, created a sequence revered for its realism, and remembered silently by the crew for how close it came to crossing into real violence. But the next film on the list traded urban streets for a battlefield of smoke, sand, and volatile pyrotechnics. Fact 12, Glory. The production of Glory sought to immerse viewers in the chaos and brutality of Civil War combat, but the methods used to recreate that chaos pushed the cast and crew into unpredictable danger. The climactic assault on Fort Wagner required hundreds of buried explosive charges, each one set to erupt at the precise moment actors crossed the sand. Yet with manual triggering and shifting wind and dust conditions, precision proved elusive. During one take, an explosive charge buried beneath a sand berm detonated prematurely. The blast launched dirt and splintered wood into the air, pelting extras and knocking two performers off their feet. Both suffered concussions and had to be removed from the set. Meanwhile, horses reacting to the unexpected explosions panicked throwing riders and stampeding dangerously close to actors scattered across the battlefield. The environment quickly devolved into a haze of smoke and airborne sand. Marks became invisible. Timing cues blurred. Actors navigating the chaos often found themselves stumbling too close to active explosive zones. Crew members scrambled to redirect performers trying to maintain safety in a setting where visibility collapsed and communication grew frantic. The sequence that emerged on screen is stunning, raw, immersive, and emotionally overwhelming. But the realism was forged in conditions that frequently veered beyond the realm of controlled filmmaking. And even this intense battlefield couldn't compare to the volatility awaiting in the next jungle set production. Fact 13, RoboCop. The making of RoboCop was marked by a level of intensity that blurred the boundary between staged violence and genuine physical danger. Paul Verhoeven insisted on a hyper-realistic aesthetic gunfire, erupting in frantic bursts, squibs firing so rapidly they created a storm of debris and cramped industrial interiors that magnified every spark and explosion. The energy on screen came from effects that were powerful, unpredictable, and far from harmless. Nowhere was this more evident than in the infamous ED 209 boardroom scene. Determined to capture the overwhelming chaos of the malfunctioning robot, Verhoeven ordered an unusually dense array of squibs to be placed on the actor's suit. When the charges ignited, the room erupted with shards of plaster, scorched rubber, and burning fragments. Several crew members ducked instinctively as the blasts veered off their intended paths, rattling equipment and filling the set with choking dust. Peter Weller, sealed inside the RoboCop suit, faced his own challenges. The suit restricted his vision and mobility, leaving him vulnerable during explosive sequences. During one warehouse firefight, he unknowingly stepped dangerously close to an active charge. When it detonated, the shockwave sent him stumbling toward a pile of jagged metal props. The the armor absorbed the blow, but the impact left him bruised and visibly shaken. Despite repeated warnings from the effects team, the pace of filming rarely slowed. Scenes were reset swiftly often before technicians had fully inspected every pyro device. Crew members later recalled that the set felt like an environment where one wrong move could easily escalate into something far worse than an on-screen injury. The resulting film became iconic for its visceral brutality, but behind that artistry lay a production defined by tension risk and relentless pressure. And yet even this industrial battlefield could not compare to the chaos brewing deep in the jungle on another legendary production. Fact 14, Apocalypse Now. The creation of Apocalypse Now has become mythic, not only for its artistic ambition, but for the sheer instability that defined every moment of filming. Shooting in the Philippines plunged the production into a volatile landscape where unpredictable weather, shifting military cooperation, and Francis Ford Coppola's unrelenting drive collided in spectacular fashion. The helicopter attack sequence exemplified this chaos. Real military helicopters flew complex formations over treetops rigged with massive fireballs. But the aircraft were piloted by soldiers who could be, and often were, pulled away mid-shoot for real conflict duties, forcing Coppola to rearrange aerial choreography on the fly. Tropical gusts swept through the set, tipping fireballs sideways and sending sheets of heat dangerously close to the flight paths. One helicopter wavered visibly during a take, buffeted by a blast that erupted further off-center than expected. The pilot later admitted the shockwave nearly forced him to abort the maneuver. The moment remained in the film, a testament to how little control the production truly had. Then, disaster struck. A typhoon tore through the jungle, flattening sets, scattering equipment, and soaking explosive rigs to the point of instability. Instead of abandoning the production, Coppola rebuilt, juggling malfunctioning pyrotechnics, exhausted crew members, and an ever-changing shooting schedule. It was filmmaking on the edge of collapse, held together by sheer will and desperation. The resulting movie is widely regarded as a masterpiece infused with a haunting madness that feels almost documentary-like. That atmosphere didn't come from imagination alone. It was carved out of a set that hovered constantly on the brink of disaster. Yet, even with all its turmoil, one more production carried danger in a way that felt unnervingly intimate. Fact 15, Platoon. Oliver Stone brought Platoon to life with the intensity of someone determined to recreate the emotional and physical reality of war. Filmed in the unforgiving jungles of the Philippines, the production demanded that actors endure the same exhaustion, disorientation, and environmental stress their characters faced. But blending harsh terrain with practical explosives created a volatile mix that led to multiple close calls. Explosive charges buried beneath the soil were designed to erupt violently during ambush scenes. In one instance, a blast detonated stronger than expected, sending a shard of bark slicing through a stunt performer's equipment. Another charge, destabilized by shifting ground overnight, hurled debris dangerously close to Charlie Sheen as he crawled through dense undergrowth. The jungle's thick vegetation obscured marks and cues, forcing actors to navigate blindly through scenes filled with active explosives. Crew members constantly intervened to redirect performers who had unknowingly drifted toward unsafe zones. Combined with physical exhaustion from the boot camp-style preparation Stone imposed, the cast often reacted with genuine alarm when blasts erupted nearby. The raw urgency visible in the final film, quivering breaths, frantic motion, palpable fear, was rooted not only in performance, but in the real unpredictability surrounding the cast. Stone succeeded in capturing the authenticity he sought, but it came at the cost of moments where the line between acting and survival blurred uncomfortably. Bonus fact, The Last Hunter. Some productions merely brush against danger, but The Last Hunter walked directly into it with startling disregard for safety. This Italian-made Vietnam War film, shot in the Philippines in 1980, operated on a shoestring budget and outside the structured oversight of Hollywood studios. Without regulated pyrotechnics or or certified explosives teams. The filmmakers relied on improvised devices and leftover munitions, from regional conflicts handled by local demolition workers, whose expertise lay in detonation, not film safety. During the staging of a river ambush, charges buried deep in the murky water erupted with a magnitude no one had prepared for. The explosion heaved a wooden boat into the air, capsizing it and flinging 3 stunt performers into a whirl of debris and shockwaves. Though all survived, 2 emerged with ruptured eardrums and burns severe enough to halt filming for days. Panic rippled through the crew, yet even that incident did not deter the production from pressing forward. Later, while filming a hillside attack, the team deployed makeshift mortars assembled from salvaged pipes and unstable explosive powder. One device misfired violently, sending a spray of soil, wood, and metal fragments directly toward the camera crew. A lens shattered instantly, and a lighting technician was struck in the arm by a spear-like splinter that required surgical removal. Incredibly, the chaotic moment captured accidentally by a rolling camera was kept in the final cut, though the film slipped quickly into obscurity, never achieving the notoriety of its Hollywood counterparts. Those who worked on it carried the memory of a production where fiction came dangerously close to real warfare. For them, The Last Hunter wasn't simply a movie. It was a reminder of how perilously thin the line between storytelling and survival can become. When real danger slips onto a film set, the line between performance and survival becomes impossibly thin. These stories reveal how far some productions were willing to go, chasing authenticity with choices that placed actors and crew in situations no script could fully contain. The explosions were real, the risks uncalculated, and the consequences sometimes irreversible. Behind the spectacle, a quieter truth emerges. Making an action movie has at times meant stepping directly into harm's way. Now that you've seen how deeply reality intruded on these films, the question turns to you. Which moment struck you as the most unbelievable? Do you think the pursuit of realism strengthens cinema, or does it push filmmaking into territory it should never cross? Your perspective matters.